Alex and Bonnie met on a dating app during quarantine. In a time of uncertainty and gloom, they were each other's reason for excitement and hope. It quickly turned to endless texting during the night, laughing, smiling, and enjoying every second of each other's company. In the weeks to come, they noticed the conversations turned more logical. It turned into "how are you? How's your day? What are you up to?" Had they rinsed all the interesting conversation already? Now that conversations became more boring and mundane, reply times grew further apart, as did they. Their greatest fears that it was all too good to be true now became true. What went wrong? The first thing that Alex and Bonnie done wrong, that a lot of people are doing wrong today over text, is their conversations are pointless. The best way to not have pointless conversations is to have a point to your conversation. How you have a point to your conversation is by flirting, is by making the conversation man to woman, by showing premise. There is now a point to the conversation, and it's to further the relationship that the two of you have. Another very important thing is they weren't building any narrative. Narrative is basically the story between the two of you. Okay, if they were to tell their friends about you, if they were to tell their parents about you, what is the story thus far that has occurred between the two of you? Okay, where did you meet? What do you have in common? What stories have you shared with each other? All of this stuff is the narrative between the two of you. You build a stronger narrative by finding things in common, having future plans of what you guys are going to do together, and really engaging the other person's emotions. This builds a strong narrative. Texting is sometimes necessary given how, I guess, easy it is to do in today's day and age, right? You just pick up your phone, you type a few words. But another thing that Bonnie and Alex failed to do is they failed to take the conversation and escalate it anywhere. They were unable to meet because they were in quarantine, and it was still quite early stages of talking, so they hadn't yet met. But what they failed to do in the time where they were only able to communicate through their phone is escalate from a text message to voice notes or to FaceTime/video call. Okay, when you are escalating these levels of communication from texting to voice notes to phone call to video call to then in person, you don't have that stagnancy in the interaction. Any relationship that is stagnant is going bad. Okay, a relationship is only ever improving or getting worse, because stagnancy, although you may think is neutral, it's actually not. Stagnancy in a relationship causes boredom. Stagnancy in a relationship causes a lack of stimulation. And this is usually a lot of the reasons why people end up cheating or why people end up finding someone else, because they're no longer stimulated. Another thing that Alex and Bonnie failed to do is build a narrative over text about meeting up. So I spoke to you about narrative a bit earlier, okay, but this is specifically the narrative about meeting up. You have to dangle the idea of meeting up and what you're going to do. You can make jokes about it and you can say, "Oh, do you know what? You've done that. I don't really want to meet you anymore." You can dangle it and it can be this kind of thing that you're both looking forward to, this thing that you're both working towards, okay? But you have to surface it up in conversation. I mean, don't be nervous to do it, because why else are you talking to them if there's no plan for you to meet them at some point in time? Another mistake that Bonnie made is Alex started getting bored of her a bit before she started getting bored of him. So Alex was taking slightly longer to respond. Okay, but Bonnie never paid attention to that and would instantly respond as quickly as she was before. Now, reply times aren't actually that important. However, you at the very least have to mirror the behavior that you're getting from the other person. If the other person is taking far too long to respond to you and showing you that you're not a priority, at the very least mirror their reply times, okay, closely. Robert Greene talks about this a lot too. Mirroring someone's behavior is sometimes the best way to go about things because they can't actually read your intentions. And aside from that, by mirroring their behavior, you're only putting in as much effort as they do at any given time. And if they therefore want you to increase the level of effort or engagement that you're putting into them, all they have to do is increase theirs, because they'll notice sometimes when they're replying slightly quicker, you're giving them more time of your day. If they're taking slightly longer, you're taking longer. And you're not monitoring this, you're not writing down the reply times, you're getting on with your life, you're busy. See it as more of a philosophy as opposed to a system. The philosophy is, I'm only going to invest into someone as much as they are willing to invest into me. Okay, and when you see it that way, it's less of a game, it's less of a rule or a system, and it's more of a philosophy that you follow out of self-respect. Okay, it should derive from self-respect. The last one is I want activities to take place. Okay, even though you're on the phone and you can't meet up in person, or you're not at the point yet to meet up in person, you need to be conducting activities over text message. Now, this is very, very possible. Okay, you can cook together over FaceTime. You can watch a movie together over the phone. This is a very interesting one that I've had a lot of history with too. It's so fun. You're both in your house, you're in the comfort of your own home, but you're watching movies together, and you sync the movies and you watch it at the same time. It's very enjoyable. You guys should really try it out. It's actually really, really fun. Or you can go on FaceTime together and work out. Or you can play an online game together. There are so many things that you can do when you are physically apart that really stimulate the brain, that really reduce the chances of stagnancy. And if anything, it builds the narrative, it raises the attraction, and it enhances the emotional connection between the two of you. Where you can stray away from logical A plus B equals C conversation, you always should, okay? Because people do not date out of logic. You do not think this person has A, B, and C, and therefore I am going to date them, because logically this seems like a mathematical equation that suffices for what it is I'm looking for. No, people date out of emotions, and then they will sometimes justify it with their logic. How the person makes you feel, it's the connection you have, the bond you have, the vibe you have. All of this is non-logical, okay? It's not linear. This is all emotional things. So just to cover those points again, you need to be having chat that has a point to it. There is a point, there is a man to woman vibe, there is a flirting vibe. This brings a point to the conversation, and it's not logical and pointless. Number 2 is the narrative, okay? So you need to build a narrative, a story between the two of you. What do you have in common? What are you guys going to do in the future? What is the dynamic between the two of you? You can build a narrative like, oh, they're chasing me. You can make a joke about it. That's now a narrative, and it builds into the frame of the conversation. The next is moving the conversation out of text. You take the conversation and you put it into voice notes, or you put it into FaceTime, or you put it into phone calls, okay? You escalate the conversation through the phone, through the different communication methods that are available to you. Next is building sexual tension through dangling the meeting up card. What are you going to do when you meet up? What's the dynamic going to be like? You can talk about it, you can joke about it. You're having light-hearted, self-amusing conversation that is about meeting up. You need to dangle this there. You need to create that excitement, create that sexual tension, and you can build that with dangling what's going to happen when you guys meet up. The next, as I said, is stagnancy is bad. Stagnancy in any relationship that is non-platonic is going to create boredom, is going to create a lack of stimulation, which can then lead in a lot of cases to people finding someone who gives them that chase, that stimulation, and that lack of boredom. Next is to mirror the reply times of the other person. And the last one is activities, playing games together, cooking together, working out together, watching movies together. All of these things you can do without meeting in person through your phone to raise your attraction level. Thank you guys, and